This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Bob Arum once again here in his offices in Las Vegas. Bob, how are you?
I'm really good. You know, a lot of anticipation for the fight, and the town is abuzz. Everything is coming together, so I'm very pleased. The only thing I'm not pleased about is, now that President Biden has said that they'll lift the travel ban on the UK. It won't be until November for some reason. So a lot of Brits who would have wanted to come to see this fight will be unable, but they can watch it on BT Sports on pay-per-view.
Bob, I don't know whether you'll remember or not. Last time I was in this office, we'd actually just finished an interview, and as I was packing up, you received a phone call, I believe it was about the Deontay Wilder arbitration case, all of 2 minutes after we finished. When you look back to kind of the entire build-up from when the arbitration case started and before then for this third fight, how would you sum it all up ahead of Saturday night?
Well, you understand. It's a baseball analogy, which you Brits know nothing about. When the pitcher throws the ball, there's a zone called a strike zone, and the ball has to be in the strike zone for it to be a strike if the batter doesn't swing at it. And if a ball is outside the strike zone, and yet the umpire calls it a strike, it's a strike. So while I didn't feel that they had a leg to stand on, the Wilder people, the arbitrator thought otherwise. And the arbitrator is a decent man who I believe was wrong in this case, but that happens. So the decision went against us. And so now you reorganize everything and you make plans to go ahead with this fight. And that's what happened. And again, I saw things and my counsel saw things completely different from the way the arbitrator ruled.
Bob, is it still a surprise to you that on Saturday night we will see this trilogy fight instead of what could have been a huge undisputed bout between Tyson and AJ prior to his defeat a couple of weekends ago?
If you believe in God, these things happen for a reason. So again, what the reason was, I don't know. And how it happened, I'm not quite sure. But it is what it is, and you deal with what you have. And right now, because of the arbitrator's ruling, we're dealing with the Wilder fight. I really believe that if the big mistake, I think, was when Eddie Hearn, and it wasn't malicious, when he sold the Saudis not only on a big site fee, but by taking over all of the television, that complicated everything, and it prevented us from making the Joshua fight with Fury. If that had been done and put to rest, the arbitrator told me afterwards that he might have given Wilder damages based on his view of the fight, but he would not have enjoyed the fight. But since there was nothing scheduled because of the back and forth with the Saudis, he felt that he could go ahead and order Tyson to go ahead with the fight with Wilder. Questionable, but again, you can't fight every battle.
Bob, in the first fight between Tyson and Deontay, most people thought Tyson had won that. Obviously ended in a draw. Second one, we saw Tyson piling the pressure on, being aggressive, come forwards and stop Deontay. This time around, what do you expect to see from Tyson? We've seen a completely varied skill set in both bouts, so what do you expect to see from him in the third outing?
I look on Tyson. I believe he has Deontay's number, and whether he's going to box him or just go out and destroy him like he did last time, I'm confident in his victory. That being said, Wilder, because of that punch that he has, is like going into a bar with a guy with a gun. Now, maybe you're a better fighter and you can beat the hell out of him, but if he reaches for his gun and he fires the gun, he can, with one shot, put you down. And that's the fight. That's the fight. Can Tyson avoid Wilder's tremendous right hand? And so far, he's done it, although he just barely did it in the first fight. The first fight, he clearly won that fight by scoring rounds. But I'll never forget the 12th round, where it looked like Tyson was completely out. And he got up, and not only did he survive, but he took the fight to Wilder. And that meant a lot. But again, Wilder's always in with a chance.
How do you think Deontay will approach this fight, Bob? I don't know whether you've been looking or not, but we've seen clips of him training with Malik Scott, and we've seen him trying to work the body more. Do you think that's something he'll be looking to make the most of? Obviously, Tyson has a huge frame, very difficult to hit his head, but because his frame's so big, do you think that's something Deontay's looked to identify, especially with his power? I don't really know. I've never been able to figure out Wilder, because I don't know if Wilder can figure out himself. So I don't know what kind of fight that he will fight, but he's very dangerous. Do you believe, regardless of the result on Saturday night, this is the end of Fury Wilder, or do you think down the line they could still cross paths yet again?
Please God, this is the last of the trilogy. Heavyweight boxing, at least in my era, has had some great trilogies. There was Ali Fraser, the best. There was Ali and Norton. There was Holyfield and Bo, which was a great trilogy, and there were a few others, but they're rare. And trilogies, particularly when one fighter wins at least one out of the three fights, are fantastic. Now, the first fight was called a draw. Second fight, Tyson devastated Wilder, and I hope this fight ends that rivalry.
Moving forwards, Bob, as we briefly mentioned earlier, Anthony Joshua, a man who was linked with Tyson for a potential undisputed fight, he lost his unified titles a couple of weeks ago to Alexander Usyk. What did you make of his unanimous decision defeat?
Look, Joshua was a very good fighter, and he seems like a very good man. But Usyk is an exceptionally good fighter that everybody underrated because of his size. He's smaller than the big heavyweights today. That being said, he's also faster than they are, and he is a better boxer than anybody now in the heavyweight division, with the possible exception of Tyson Fury.
AJ's said, and Eddie Hearn said, that they will have the rematch with Alexander Usyk. How do you think he needs to approach about the second time around?
Again, I have no idea how he's going to approach it. If I were he, I would... the only way I think Joshua beats Usyk is by going and trying to bulldoze him and trying to beat him up. press the fight. The problem there is that Joshua doesn't have the greatest chin, and Usyk, although basically a cruiserweight, is still a good puncher. And so I don't know if it's wise for Joshua to take that risk. But again, I don't know enough about Joshua. I really don't. And I've seen his fights, but I really don't know his character and personality. So I wouldn't even attempt to advise him how to fight Usyk. All I'm saying, it's a very, very tough task. I knew that when they made the fight because I know Usyk very well because he's such a good friend of Vasily Lomachenko. And I like him because he's so funny and he's such a nice guy. But he's a terrific fighter, Usyk is, and he'll beat most heavyweights, including Joshua. I think the one heavyweight that it may be a bridge too far for him is Tyson Fury.
Do you believe a bout between Tyson and AJ could still happen even if AJ wasn't to hold any world titles?
Yeah, I don't think his not holding a world title would mean anything. But if he fights Usyk again, which I don't think is wise for him to do right away, and gets beat, and then and Tyson beats Wilder, and after another fight we make a Tyson fight with Usyk, and Tyson beats Usyk, it's a very hard sell, Joshua and Fury at that point. Not that it can't be done, because there's tremendous interest in both of these guys, particularly in UK.
I saw you said that you'd be willing to negotiate for maybe if AJ was to step aside from a rematch, Fury faced Usyk, provided he beats Deontay in an undisputed bout, and then AJ could step in an undisputed fight against AJ. Have you had any interactions with his team since you said that?
Oh, the idea of having Usyk fight Tyson and having a contract for the winner obligated to fight Joshua would make, in my mind, a lot of sense. But this is boxing, and people aren't sensible, and egos get in the way. So, no, I think if I suggested that, they would, stonewall me, no question. It has to come from them. It has to come from them. And it has to come from Joshua to send out a signal that that's what he would be willing to do. If I were him, that's what I would do. I would take on another fight, just get my confidence back, let Usyk fight Fury, if God willing, Fury wins on Saturday, and do it that way. But again, that's the sensible way, and in boxing, unfortunately, people aren't sensible.
Bob, just a couple of other topics to get your thoughts on before I do let you go. Teofimo Lopez, Kambosos. What's your take on this entire situation, Bob, and what is your understanding with how the field lies now?
Well, the IBF had to follow its rules. And the rules are that anybody who's a licensed promoter can put a purse bid in. And Triller put a crazy bid in, $6 million for that fight, which made no sense, and didn't know what to do with it. They're not really professional boxing promoters. There should be a rule in these organizations. There isn't now, but it could be adopted, that nobody could bid on a fight, no promoter, unless they had previously promoted at least one world title fight for that organization. So at least you'd get somewhat experienced promoters bidding. But Triller won the bid, and apparently now are going to default. And then the second bid is Matchroom. And we never figured out why Eddie Hearn would want to handle a Teofimo-Kambosos fight, which isn't a big fight, why they would spend money when they have no future with Lopez, because we have a long-term contract with him. But, you know, the Zone and Eddie may have their own ideas. So if this fight, I think it'll be defaulted today, now goes to Eddie, has 3 days to decide whether he wants to do it. And I talked to him over the weekend, and he says, yes, Matchroom wants to do it. So, you know, Eddie's a professional promoter, and once he picks a date, he'll stick with the date, and he'll put the fight on appropriately, you know, without crazy gimmicks. And I told Eddie if he needs footage from us of prior Lopez fights, we're happy to supply it. So, I mean, but again, for all the back and forth between Hearn and myself and Frank Warren, Eddie's a professional promoter. He knows what he's doing, and I hope we do as well. So, of course, we would cooperate with him in putting on that fight, should they, in fact, choose to do the fight.
Bob, Herring-Stevenson, only a couple of weeks away as well now. How excited are you for that one?
That's a terrific fight. A lot of people think that Stevenson's going to roll over him because Stevenson is just such a tremendous boxer. But never underestimate a Marine. Herring is a very good fighter, as he showed with Frampton. He had 2 tours of duty in Iraq. He's a tough hombre. I think it's going to be a brilliant fight, and I'm happy that you Brits will be able to see it. It'll be on Sky Sports.
And of course, Crawford-Porter finally announced for November 20th. If Terence is successful in that one, Bob, where does that stand him then in the 147 division? Because the only question today is how will he fare against another world-level operator in that division? If he's successful, does it make him the best at 147 then?
Well, yeah, I thought he was the best in any event. But sure, if he wins Porter, that helps solidify his credentials as the best. But, you know, there's the guy Spence out there. Spence is a terrific fighter. And I think the public would want to see Crawford and Spence go at it once, if Crawford beats Porter, once Spence's eye is taken care of.
What do you make of Crawford-Porter as a final question?
It's a really good fight. Crawford-Porter can go either way because of Porter's style. He suffocates you. And Terence needs room to throw his devastating punch combinations. But Terence hasn't been beat, you know, and he's a tough customer. So, you know, I would have to favor Terence in the fight, but it certainly can go either way.
Well, Bob, we will leave that there now. I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your days. Pleasure to catch up with you. Enjoy fight week and enjoy Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. You're going to see a great event because not only is the Fury-Wilder fight the opposite, the premier attraction, there are 3 great heavyweight fights on the pay-per-view. Real competitive fights. And so people are in store not only to see a great fight in Fury and Wilder, but to see the best heavyweights in the world go at it on the undercard in 3 competitive fights.
Bob, thank you.
You're very welcome.